So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tracey Graham. I'm the Children and Teen Librarian at the Millbrae Public Library. We're working to expand our offerings for teens, so we have a number of programs this month on cooking, art, and safe driving. This session is the first in a three-part series on financial literacy for teens. So we have the first session today called SMART Goals. On Monday, February 22nd, we have our second session called Budgeting for Youth. And on Monday, March 22nd, we'll have a third session called Understanding Credit. But right now, I have the privilege of introducing Sue Katz, a financial expert with more than 40 years of experience in personal, corporate, and small business finance. Over the years, she's won awards for her work in community outreach, specifically for her work assisting and educating those in the military. And she's led classes for first-time homebuyers. As a small business owner herself, she's well-versed in how the economy and proper budgeting can affect a business or an individual's personal finances. She's been with the nonprofit American Consumer Credit Counseling since 2009, and I'm thrilled that she's bringing her knowledge and experience to us today. So Sue, thank you very much for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
I thank you very much, Tracy, for inviting me. So right now we only have one person in the area. I'm sure more will be joining in shortly, but I'm going to say that you can turn your mic on so that we can have this be an interactive course if you choose. I understand because it's being taped, you may not choose to do that, and that's fine. If you have questions, please do type them in the chat. So our topic today is SMART goals, and I love this topic to start the new year off with for everybody because I actually plan out my year at the beginning. So we're going to be talking today, hold on one second, what they are, how to use SMART goals, and how to break them down into goals that are smaller units so that you can watch your progress as you're moving along. We're going to also talk about thinking outside the box, which is my favorite thing. You know, finding alternative ways to do things that we want to do in our lives. Because, and I'll say it again and again, money doesn't grow on trees. So we do have to look for the ways that we can manipulate our budgets in order to make our goals both achievable and sustainable. We're going to learn about measuring your progress, and I'll give you some information on my organization as well. So where do we start? I want you all to close your eyes and think for a minute or two on what you think you want out of your life. It could be something within the next 5 years, it could be 10 years, or it can be a picture in your mind of what you want way down the road. Just think about it for 1 minute. Now I want you to think about who has talked to you about money. Have you learned about it in school? Do your folks talk about it at home? What do you see and what do you think in your mind about money? Like I said, money doesn't grow on trees. And I was very lucky myself. When I was growing up back in the 60s and 70s, there was financial literacy taught in the school system. When I was growing up, my mother, unfortunately, had to raise us after my father passed away on what little she had. And my mom was a Depression era baby. So she knew how to work with very little, but we never wanted for anything because she knew how to bring those resources in. So I learned some very valuable lessons both in school and at home. That's why I always have you guys think about it for a moment beforehand. Now, if you do have a pen and paper, I want you to write down these thoughts. Every year, whether it's New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, I write in my journal and I look back at the previous year and I look at what I wrote about. It could be things that happened over the year. It can be goals and accomplishments that I've made or where I thought I was going to go. And I want you to write these goals down. Having something written down in black and white makes it real. Now we've got to think, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the road, you want to be in college, or maybe you want to be married with a family already, or have a house, depending on your age. I don't know the age group of the room. I just know that you're youth. You could be anywhere in high school or middle school or whatever it may be. So I want you to think about that picture. What is that perfect life? And write it down. Now we have to think about turning those into our SMART goals. And this is breaking down the big goal into smaller things that we need to do to take us there. So here is our starting point. This is who I am today. And that's why in my journal, I look back at the last year and I look at what I did accomplish for this year. And I write down myself some goals for the next year to come. Those goals need to be specific. So you need to know what it is. You need a timeline to measure it by, so you can tell when you're achieving it. Achievable means that it's something that is not impossible. And in all honesty, I don't believe any goal is impossible. It's just the amount of work that we need to do to get us there. Relevant or realistic? What is it advancing you towards? It's advancing you towards that bigger dream that you have. And it has to be time bound. So when I'm talking about how do we measure where we're going, those smaller goals are going to be the short-term goals. The longer goal of maybe having a house and a family and the white picket fence and all that sort of good stuff is the long-term one that we want. For some of you, it might be something like college. And thinking about what it takes to get into those spots and into school can be a goal in its own. So we're going to look at a couple of different ways that I use to break down goals and break down dreams. And I am going to use some examples. I'm not sure if the first one's on this page or not. Nope. So, oh yes, it is. I'm sorry. So I'm shrinking this down so that you guys can see my example. So obviously, a lot of you guys might be thinking about school. You know, what kind of career you want to have. For some of you, it may be that you want to go to college. For some of you, it may not be. And that's okay too. It's whatever your goal is. It's not my choice. So, but if you look at my example, all right, I want you to think about the job that you want to have. Okay, are you going to go into the health field? Are you going to become a mechanic? What are your interests right now? What do you think you might want? Like I said before, for not everybody needs college to do a job that they may want to do. In fact, some things like an electrician, plumber, somebody that's a carpenter, those jobs are in high demand, but you don't need a college degree for them. It might be trade school for those types of things. But when you're doing a budget to save money to go back to school, we have to first compare the prices of the different schools out there. You need to know how much you need to save up to obtain this. Okay? Do you have good grades? Are you into hockey or football or whatever other sport? Are there grants that you might potentially get? When you're filing for college or thinking about going to college, you actually have to file the paperwork and do all your essays for those grants by your junior year at the latest. Some people even start off in their sophomore year. Okay. And is it going to be a state school or a community college? That is a great way to save on the cost of college by doing your first 2 years at a community college and or a state school. Again, I'm thinking about a big goal. It's a very expensive goal if you want to go for a 4-year college. So we want to make sure that we bring the cost down as much as possible to make it more attainable to get there. From there, we can determine how long it's going to take us to achieve our goal. And we can think outside the box a little bit more and look at certification classes too. And like I said before, self-study or trade schools, if they're appropriate for the job that you want. So I'm going to give you an example about me. And that example is I never went to college for real. I actually took a semester with Northeastern University in psychology and sociology, but I couldn't afford to keep going on. Why? Because I had moved out of my mother's house when I was 17 and I was working full time and I had to pay for it on my own and pay for my living expenses. I tried to go to nursing school after that because I was working for a state hospital, but I couldn't get any grants. So that ruled out going to nursing school. But I did get my EMT license because it was something that I could afford. From there, I got certifications in a lot of different areas in finance. I ended up loving dealing with money and working with money, and I ended up becoming a tax accountant. That was my business that I started 31 years ago. And when I first started it, it was on certification courses and working for CPAs. I'd come in, do per diem work in their office, and anytime I did something wrong, they'd throw the tax return back at me, literally, sometimes, and say, Katz, go fix it. And I'd have to find my own mistake. They wouldn't even tell me what was wrong with the tax return. This is the school of hard knocks, but guess what? I learned an awful lot. So now I'm certified in many different areas. I am certified personal financial counselor. I'm a certified educator. I'm a certified tax accountant. I'm certified in credit and collections. I'm certified in, and I can go on and on and on. But those certifications got me to a place that I wanted to be. So the reason I'm saying this, not everybody does go to college, and that's okay. You guys can make it other ways. It's your dream and how you choose to do it. Let's think about another example when we're thinking outside the box, because there are some obstacles that we do have to overcome. What resources can we fit in to help us overcome those obstacles? Remember, I was talking about grants and scholarships for college. That might be a resource. So let's look at buying your first car. I love this one, especially when I think about my very first car was a Maverick, way back when in the 70s. And it cost very, very little money. For most of you guys, your first car will come from the want ads, and that's okay. You're not going to have that Maserati the first time out. But when we're looking at big purchases like cars, homes, and things like that, we have to be realistic to the budget that we have. And I'm telling you, between the SMART goals, learning to think outside the box, and learning to plan before you do, and using the other tool of your budget and a little bit of understanding what your credit score is and credit report means, you can actually achieve what you want to and not live over your means. There's an old saying, the only way to get rich is to live below your means, and the only way to stay rich is to live below your means. So let's look at a car. According to the Consumer Reports, the average lifespan of a car is 8 years. If somebody takes care of their car very well, it can be 10 or 12 years or longer, okay? If you're buying a brand new car, they run upwards of $38,000, okay? If you get a loan on it, my numbers are going to be a lot lower than what the loan numbers really are, because interest adds on. But 38,000 divided by 8 years, the actual car itself is $4,750 a month. I mean, per year. I'm sorry. When we're thinking about that, that's a lot of money to be paying per year just for the principal of that car. Never mind your insurance or the maintenance or anything else. If you get a car that's 2 years old, you're actually going to save money, because as soon as a car is driven off the lot, it loses money, loses value. It's called depreciation. Okay? So the same car, you can actually get that exact same car for around $30,000 if you buy it a year old. And that would be around $4,336 a year. Okay, so you're already saving money. If you buy a car that's 2 years old, you're going to save more. I look at cars also in the fact that your insurance and excise tax go down after the vehicle is 2 years old. Okay, and in my life, I don't know about anybody else's, but getting a car that's about 4 years old works out right for me. Now the same car is approximately $10,000 to $13,000. Over the lifespan of the car, 4 years, that's $2,500 a year. You notice how I saved almost half of what the brand new car would have cost. I'm going to take care of my car, and it would fit my budget, and I would be able to drive it for a lot less money. Now, when you own a car versus leasing a car, you have trade-in value, which means the next time that you go to buy a car, you can trade up and use the trade-in value of that car as your down payment for your new car. Leasing, whoever you're leasing the car from, is getting all the money, and there is no trade-in value. Also, with the lease, if you drive over the amount of miles that they allow you in the lease, you're going to owe them more money when you're giving it away. So when we think about looking at things like cars, your probably best bet, thinking outside the box, would be something like an auto magazine or the want ads for your very first car. Find something used directly from an owner of that vehicle. Unless you have somebody that has very good mechanical skills in your household, if you have somebody that you know of that has the good mechanical skills, you may buy a car from auction. These cars you actually can get for $5,000, $4,000, sometimes even $1,500. Okay. But we do have lemon laws in the state. So if something is wrong with it mechanically, you actually have some recourse if you decide that you don't want it in a short amount of time. Usually it's about 14 days, I believe, that they give you for the lemon laws. And we can look that up later to make sure I'm correct on that number. But also, by thinking about your budget and putting money away towards that car, it's going to give you a bigger down payment to whatever you choose to buy. The more money you put down on a vehicle, the less you're going to owe over time. Okay? And if you are going to get a loan for that vehicle, you want to think about mom and dad co-signing that loan. You want to make sure that you can make those payments. Because if something messes up, it not only goes on your credit, but it can hurt mom and dad's credit as well. So if you can't do it yourself and you're having a co-signer, you want to make sure that you can make those payments, which means you're going to do a good budget. Like I said, we will be discussing the budget very seriously next week. But when you go clothes shopping with your parents for back to school items, it's good to know how much they can afford to spend and help choose your items carefully out of that figure. I love that as a lesson with parents as well with students on making sure that everybody understands mom and dad are limited in what they can do in 90% of the families around. Within that limit, you should be able to make some of your own choices. So it's working together to make sure that you get what you need for the lowest price possible. And sometimes that means doing some research. So when I talk to adults about thinking outside the box and thinking about resources that can help you overcome obstacles, I always tell them, write down the pros and cons of what you want to do. And then start researching the ways to bring things into your life as inexpensively as possible that you want to achieve. For most of my students, some of you guys may have part-time jobs or summer jobs, and you want that money to stretch. You want to be looking and putting your money into 3 different buckets. One is for saving towards your next big goal. One of them is for spending now, but making the proper choices for you, not somebody else. Meaning that I don't want you thinking about all the peer pressure. Okay? This is your budget, your money, your life. All your friends may have this, but are you even going to use it? I see so many people getting things, thinking that they want them, and they either sit on a shelf or in a closet. That is not something that I would say is worth getting. And unfortunately, the advertisers spend billions of dollars each and every year to get in our brains and in our psyches to get us to impulse buy. So by writing down a list or thinking about what is important to you ahead of time, again, this is my planning, then you are not going to be tripped up in those impulse buys or the peer pressure buys. And you're going to start making those smart choices for yourself. You may look for coupons for things that you might want. You may go online and look up the price tags of things and see if you can find something on sale. Don't buy it online though. Show it to mom and dad, or if you're on your own and choosing this, I want you to bring the advertisement into a brick and mortar store and see if they will price match it or go lower. A lot of stores will give you 10% off the lowest price that you see and or will match the price. Remember, your local community needs you. So we want to make sure that we spend our money in our local communities. It may be when we're looking at the schools and things like that, cost comparing. Going to school in Massachusetts is great because you're a Mass resident. So you can get with the state schools deductions, but you might get even more deductions with the community colleges. Even with bank accounts, I tell people choose 3 of the same types of banks and compare apples to apples. So if I was shopping around for a savings account right now, I know that credit unions, a lot of them, are giving much better interest rates than the local banks or the big banks. At DCU, I can get 3% interest on my first $1,000. At Jeanne d'Arc Credit Union, I can get 7% interest on my first $500, then 0.85% on the rest. At, Hanscom Savings, I can get 3% as long as I make a deposit every single month up to $10,000 total in the account. So that's an example of comparing apples to apples. Now, these were the best rates I could find when I was doing a series for some other organization. But when I looked at those, which one's most convenient to me? That's a question to think about. If you like online banking, which I'm not a fan of, particularly for myself, which one offers it? For me, I like passbook savings, but I also like to be able to call the bank and say transfer money here or there. Does the bank offer it? What are the restrictions? Are there any fees? These are all questions that we have to ask. So it's comparing things, it's planning things, it's looking for alternative ways to find what we want to bring in our house. Another thing that you all might want to think about is Fun-Free Fridays for entertainment. Tells you what's going on every Friday night for free in your local community. That could be anything from fairs, or it might be community concerts or free movie series. It may be using your local library for day passes when things open back up. Most of those are free. I see Tracy shaking her head, but it's true. Day passes are great. So you can go to zoos, museums, the Audubon Society. 99% of these day passes are free. And the ones that do have a price tag to them are extreme reductions in price, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Using your local library for different cultural events, the learning series that they have, they're all great things. It may be that you look on the free section of Craigslist, or if you're on Facebook, look on the free to me sites in your local community. I have a friend of mine from Framingham. Unfortunately, their mother passed away and they had to clean out her house. And as we were cleaning out the house, everything that we found that she wanted to get rid of, she posted it on Free to Me. And people were coming constantly to pick up different types of items. Some of it was games, some of it was movies, some of it was music, some of it was furniture, all different types of things you can find on those sites. Doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't cost your parents anything. So looking at those local sites. And then there are local yard sale sites. So poking around those types of things. Another warning that I'm going to give you kids when I'm saying thinking outside the box for stuff. I know we all like Nike sneakers and Game Boys and all those different types of things. A lot of times you can find those at discount sites and discount stores. So the Nikes that you buy for at Foot Locker for $150, you might find the same pair at a Marshall's or something like that for $50. So again, it's shopping around to find the lowest cost. We want to make sure that everything that we're doing and planning for fits our budget so that we do have that extra money to save up for those goals that we have. And we also want to start checking things off as we keep going. So I have a favorite Excel spreadsheet. Now, some of you guys have never used Excel before, but a lot of you guys are more, believe it or not, computer savvy than this accountant, because I learned things with pen and paper. But if you make up yourself a spreadsheet of what's in your savings account, what's in your piggy bank, what's in maybe mom and dad put away a CD for you or college fund or whatever it may be, and list those things and just make a list of them and how much is there. Then total that list up. Then total up if you owe anybody anything. Are you paying off that first car? Do you owe mom and dad some money for something else? Do you owe your brothers or your sisters or somebody else some money? You won't be getting your first credit card till you're minimum of 18 with the parent's signature. Most people won't get one till they're 21 now because of the new laws. But this is going to give you a spot to check to make sure that your savings, otherwise known as assets, are slowly but surely going up. And not only that you're paying off your debts to people that you owe money to, and like I said, if you have your first car already, your car debts on a monthly basis, but watching those go down. And whatever is left over after the total of those assets minus those debts, that is your net worth. And we want to grow that net worth. Now, when you make a big purchase like a car, the total amount of money that you owe on the loan each month is the total debt. It's not the payment that you made. It's the money that you owe. So each time you make a payment, that amount of money is going to go down each month. Watching those debts go down, watching the assets grow. You might have a negative when you make a big purchase. We want to bring it back to a positive. Another thing that you might do is a checklist. Check off some of those smaller things that you are doing as steps towards your bigger goal. So we were talking about college. Okay, what year of school are you in? If you are a sophomore or a junior, start thinking about the education that you need. Is it a trade school? Are you looking at community colleges? Are you looking at state schools or a bigger school? Start comparing the costs. And start going online to the websites that show you the college grants and scholarships. And start doing your research now to figure out which ones you could apply to. This is my list, all right? Where am I going to go? What do I want to do? Who can I do it with? What possible ways can I save money on it? Okay. And then we got to actually do the work and start writing those grants and scholarship requests. And a lot of them will involve essays. And hopefully those will be accepted before I have to apply to the school, so that when we send out those requests to the colleges, if you're going to college, and you get your acceptance letter in, you know how you're going to pay for it. FAFSA and loans are going to cost you money over time. Those are going to be debts that you owe. You don't owe them while you're going to school, but you will owe them at the end. We want to make those loans as small as possible if we cannot avoid them 100%. Okay. Also want to think about the job that we want as a career after school. Does the salary of that position look proper against the cost of going to school to be able to get that salary? Like I said before, not everything needs a college degree. You might do something like I did and do the certification route instead. You get to the same place and it costs you a lot less money. So keeping this checklist with your journal and your budget is going to help you measure how you're getting towards the goal. And like I said, SMART goals can be used for anything in life. It just has to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound, finding the way to get from here to there. In our next month's group, we're going to talk about budgeting. We're going to talk about tracking your budget. And we're going to be talking about, again, finding ways to save money on your budget. So for anybody that is watching this class, I ask you to start now doing some homework and seeing where you're spending your money, including bubble gum, cups of coffee, energy drinks, whatever it may be that you're spending your money on. And I want you, by the next time that we are together, to be able to add up and see how much you're spending on specific items. That's part of tracking. That's part of making the decision if this is something that you like in your lifestyle or something that maybe you can change how you bring it in. I'll give you an example of this one too. I used to go to Dunkin' Donuts for a cup of coffee and a bagel every morning. Never thought much of it. It was $3.50 a day when I was doing it. Not a lot of money. Well, I added it up one time and it was over $911 a year. I started getting my coffee and bagels at the grocery store and added that up. It was about $210 a year. So by making that one change in my lifestyle, didn't change what I brought in. I'm stubborn just like everybody else. But I changed the way I brought it in. I can save myself $700 a year. And that $700 can either be used to pay for something else in my life and or put into savings, because life happens. Doesn't matter who you are, how much money you make, or what's going on in the world around you. Life happens to everybody, and nobody's immune from it. So having that money tucked away for those life events is also a goal to have, having some savings for when things go wrong. So, homework assignment. Everybody's going to write in their journal, start doing a checklist, and like I said, check the items that you're buying between now and the next class. and we'll start looking at those things. And if anybody would like advice on how to save in different areas, I'd be happy to give you advice. So the organization that I work for, before I ask you for questions, is called American Consumer Credit Counseling. We are a nonprofit financial education agency. We teach, we tweet, we blog, all different types of things. And you can go online at consumercredit.com anytime you would like. Oops, I've got somebody else's information up there. I apologize. But anytime that you would like at consumercredit.com, and check out our blogs. We have calculators there. We have all kinds of information there. All of the education that we do is free to the public. All of our materials are free to the public. If somebody's in trouble, we do things like debt management programs. We do housing counseling, student loan counseling, and we also do bankruptcy certifications. So if you know an adult in trouble, please give them our website, consumercredit.com, and we'll be there to help them out too. So, can I open it up for questions?
Yes, please do. Do you have any questions from our audience? I know I really enjoyed this presentation. I absolutely love that you mentioned that libraries have different sorts of passes and programs. I mean, this is just one example of something that maybe someplace else you might have to pay for, but you know that American Consumer Credit, they offer these things for free, but you know, libraries, different sorts of organizations and communities are all about trying to provide things for people for free. And of course, we have things like books here on managing your finances, learning more about talking to your kids or talking to your parents about finances. So I really love the idea of different ways of thinking outside the box to get what you want and get what you need.
Oh, you guys have a lot of resources. In fact, one of my favorite books for anybody that would like to borrow it from the library and or find it, you know, out there at a used bookstore, because I don't think it's been published recently, was Frugal Fanny. It is a book that my mother gave me when I was younger. And even though, you know, times change and everything else, it has some of the best ways to save inside of that book. And it really helped me learn different tricks on how to save money at different places. So it's called Frugal Fanny, and I don't remember who it's by.
Okay. That is something that I'll definitely look up, and we'll follow up with a posting and more information with how to contact you, how to contact your organization, and then some of these recommendations that you've made. Yeah.
Terrific. Oh, I see something in the chat.
Oh, yes. Let's see it. Says, thank you. This is very informative. We're so excited that this is so informative, and we're so happy that you're here. So thank you. Even if you don't have a question, that's okay. Thank you for listening, and thank you for joining. This is what we try to do here. We're glad that you're here. If we don't have any further questions, Sue, is it okay if I wrap things up and just let people know about our next sessions?
Most definitely.
Okay, so I absolutely want to say thank you, Sue, for this presentation. I thought it was very informative. I thought it was really interesting, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much to our audience for coming. As a reminder, this is just the first in our series. We'll have 2 more coming up, one in February and one in March. So please be sure to look at our calendar of events. You can find it at the library website, which is www.millburylibrary.org. There you can see a summary of the events. You can see when our next program for this is. It's February 22nd. You can sign up and get a link. And we hope to see you at that time. But thank you everyone so much for being here, and I'm definitely looking forward to our next presentation on budgeting for youth. I am going to end the recording now.